Hey everybody. Well, that last episode sure was a doozy. It was the longest one by far, and I doubt I'll ever think of a series more confusing than Dragon Slayer. But hell, it's time to move on. I have to say, after all the insane research and preparation to make that episode, especially considering that it was a holiday week, and I had to get everything done earlier than usual, it's nice to kick back and talk about something I already know a lot about. And it's pretty easy, and that is Mortal Kombat. Now honestly, there's not much confusing about Mortal Kombat. The simple fact is that it's a fairly linear progression of games. Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Mortal Kombat 4, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat Deception, and Mortal Kombat Armageddon. There was also Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, which I guess isn't really canon because Armageddon ended the series and killed off, well, just about everybody. But it is around. The new game, simply called Mortal Kombat, is sort of a remake that tells the story of the first three games, but at the same time is a reboot, restarting the series from scratch, but at the same time continues the story from Armageddon. As when Raiden dies at the end of that game, he has sent back visions of everything that happened back in time to his younger self. It sounds confusing, but well, that's pretty much all there is to it. There's also Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, which is a prequel taking place before the first game. It was supposed to spin off into a series of Mythologies games starring other characters, but that didn't happen due to the game failing both commercially and critically, though many years later came Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, which is a sort of weird alternate take on Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat Special Forces was supposed to be another prequel, being the first game chronologically, and that in itself is confusing because the main character, Jax, has metal arms, which he didn't have until Mortal Kombat 3. Thankfully, it's not considered part of the series anymore, which is great because it's an awful wretched game. It was created by John Tobias, but he left midway before it was finished, and it was rushed out to retail in a largely unfinished and very unpolished state. Mention the game to Ed Boon if you want to get punched in the face. So really, like I said, nothing too confusing, but one thing that a lot of people ask me questions about is the ninja characters. There's a lot of them, and for a while they all kind of look the same, just different color outfits. I don't think it's confusing, but I put myself in the position of a newer or younger fan who hasn't been playing the series since its inception. And yeah, it can get pretty confusing, especially as Sub-Zero is two different characters and whatnot. So let's go through the games chronologically and talk about the ninjas. I'll be talking about both the male and female ninjas, as well as the cyborg ninjas. You know, there hasn't been a female cyborg ninja. NetherRealm Studios should get on that. The original Mortal Kombat introduced us to the original two ninjas, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, who are both playable characters. Sub-Zero is in the blue costume, while Scorpion is in the yellow costume. Now, I actually want to stop and say something here. I call them ninjas because that's what everybody calls them, but the fact is that ninjas are Japanese. So technically, most of the characters I'm going to be talking about are not actually ninjas. As for example, Sub-Zero is Chinese, and characters later on like Ermac, Rain, Jade, Katana, and so on actually come from other realms, not Japan. So although most of them are technically not ninjas, the fact is that's what everybody calls them, including Ed Boon, so why the hell not? Sub-Zero is a Chinese warrior whose real name is Bi-Han. He took the codename Sub-Zero due to his mastery of ice magic. He wears the uniform of the Lin Kuei clan and the color blue to signify his mastery of cold. Scorpion is possibly the only real ninja in the series, as he was a Japanese warrior named Hanzo Hasashi. Hanzo was killed by the Lin Kuei, who attacked his clan, the Shinryu. Sub-Zero, in particular, murdered his wife and child, and he's out for revenge. Originally, it was said that he chose yellow as his costume color to mock the Lin Kuei, as yellow meant cowardly, but I'm pretty sure that's been retconned right out and is now considered just his regular uniform. Hanzo died and went to the Netherrealm, but he returned as a vengeful wraith out for revenge against Sub-Zero. So at first there were two ninjas. Now the backstories are interesting and all, but the fact of the matter is, it just made things easier, allowing the development team, who were actually quite rushed, to have two characters with basically the same sprite, just with different colors. This is known as a palette swap, and Mortal Kombat definitely got out of hand with it after a while. Also, the old Mortal Kombat games had the characters played by actors who performed the moves in front of a green screen, and they were then filmed, and the images of them were digitized for use in the game. Having two characters who were basically the same exact costume allowed one actor to play multiple roles, cutting down development costs. Later on, a third ninja came around. He wasn't actually in the initial release of the game, but in updated versions of the arcade game, and almost all of the home ports. You can find a third ninja called Reptile. I still remember how you get to Reptile. You had to fight on the pit stage, and during the battle, you had to get an object to fly in front of the moon. This didn't always happen, and I understand it actually happens more as the game is powered on for a longer period of time. You had to win a battle with the double flawless victory and end the battle with a fatality. I've heard other rules, like you can't block, and therefore you couldn't use Sonya, whose fatality used the block button. Now, I don't know how true that actually is, at least in the arcade version. In the Super NES home port that I had, you could get to Reptile as Sonya. It didn't matter how many times you pressed block, the fact is that you had to get a double flawless victory and therefore could not block attacks, as blocking attacks still damaged you. But it had nothing to do with actually pressing the block button. This may be different, however, as the Super NES port did not require anything flying in front of the moon either. Anyway, Reptile was a secret boss that you would fight in the bottom of the pit stage, and he was not playable. Reptile wore a green outfit and could use the moves of both Scorpion and Sub-Zero, and switched between their stances during the battle. Reptile was said to be harder than the last boss, Shang Tsung, and the hardest character in the game to beat, but I never considered him to be any harder than most characters. If anybody is the toughest character, it would be Goro. But I digress. Back when he was discovered, Reptile amused me, because he was green, and he was a mixture of Scorpion and Sub-Zero. And after all, what do you get when you mix the colors yellow and blue together? Green, exactly. His name was enigmatic, but I figured at the time it was just because he was green and reptiles were green. However, it was revealed in later games that Reptile is actually a reptilian creature who partially takes on a human form. It even got kind of crazy after a while when he eventually had a look closer to Lizard Man from Soul Calibur. But the most recent game restores him to his humanoid lizard form. There was a rumored red ninja named Ermac, but he was nothing more than an elaborate hoax perpetrated by Midway, putting the phrase Ermacs in the audit menu right after Reptile battles. Some people theorized that it was to track a specific error code, and that Ermac stood for error macro, but in fact it was nothing more than a joke, just like the other audits such as Shawn attacks. A screenshot of Ermac showed up in Electronic Gaming Monthly, sent in by a reader who supposedly fought Ermac, but it's an obvious fake, as it's clearly a picture of Scorpion with the yellow shifted to red, proven by the fact that you can see red flags in the background, and if you're familiar with the stage, you know the flags are actually yellow. Some people said that there was a glitch that would turn Scorpion red, but it was more baloney, never been documented. If you want more info on that, go watch the Urban Legends of Video Gaming video that I did about it. So that's Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 2 introduced several new characters, but let's talk a bit about the returning characters. Scorpion and Sub-Zero return, and Reptile is now playable, and now has his own moves rather than using Scorpion and Sub-Zero's moves. It's revealed that he's basically a lackey of Shang Tsung, and his real name is, well, actually it's Reptile. Go figure. But the interesting character to talk about is Sub-Zero. It seemed weird that Scorpion wouldn't get his revenge on Sub-Zero in the first game, but it turns out he did. Sub-Zero was killed at the end of the first Mortal Kombat, so when a new Sub-Zero shows up for the Outworld tournament, Scorpion is all like, "What?" It turns out that this Sub-Zero is the younger brother of the first one. He originally had the codename Tundra, but took the name Sub-Zero to honor his brother. His name is Kuai Liang this time, and he's the one out for revenge, though him and Scorpion actually wind up being friends. Weird. The two new ninja characters are chicks, Kitana and Mileena. Kitana wears blue and Mileena wears violet. Kitana is a princess of Outworld, the daughter of Emperor Shao Kahn, though it was later turned out that he wasn't her real father, but rather killed her real father, King Jared of Edenia, and married Jared's wife Sindel forcibly in a bid to merge the realms. Man, that's some fucking Uncle Claudius shit right there. Melina is actually a clone of Kitana created by Shang Tsung's sorcery, but her face is busted because to make her more aggressive and more loyal to Shao Kahn, they used Tarkatan blood in her creation. The Tarkatans are the race that Baraka comes from. The Tarkatan blood also makes her insane. So guys, before you fantasize about this one, just so you know, she has the mind of a child, is insane to boot, and would probably rip it off just for fun. Also, she looks like Baraka under the mask. Not hot at all. Anyway, there was some secret boss characters in Mortal Kombat 2, just like Reptile was in the first game. Firstly, there was Jade. Jade was another female ninja. This one wears green. Yeah, see, Jades are green. She's named Jade. She wears green. To her. She's a childhood friend and bodyguard of Kitana. Nothing so special about her, except her race. While in-game she's Edenian, well, that doesn't mean much. It just means that she was from the realm of Edenia, and I'm sure they have several races there. In Mortal Kombat 2, she's clearly black, and this was mirrored in her later appearances, at least at first. Over time, she kinda got whitewashed and just looked a bit tanned. Weird. There was also Smoke, a male ninja who wore a gray outfit with smoke coming off of him. Smoke's real name was Tomas Vibrata, and he was a Lin Kuei ninja and friend of Sub-Zero, and that would be Kuai Liang, not Bihan. The last secret boss character was also a ninja, Noob Saibot, who wore all black. Actually, there was no shading or anything on his character sprite. He was literally just one color, giving him the appearance of a shadow. Noob Saibot, spelled backwards, would be Tobias Boon, named after John Tobias and Ed Boon, the creators of Mortal Kombat. He was said to be a lost combatant from Mortal Kombat 1. A lot of people thought that Smoke and Noob Saibot are the same character, mostly because in later games they appeared as a single selectable character, Noob Smoke. And you can switch between the two, but this wasn't two forms, it was two separate characters that had an alliance and were in a tag team type situation. Noob actually isn't Smoke at all, but is actually the wraith of Bihan, the original Sub-Zero, meaning that the Sub-Zero from the first game became Noob Saibot. Like Ermac in the first game, there was another rumored red ninja, only this time it was a female red ninja that fans called Scarlet. And once again, the speculation was about a coding glitch. This time it was supposedly Kitana who randomly would turn red for no reason. And like with Ermac, there's never been any sort of confirmation or documentation of this ever happening. Scarlet, like Ermac, was just a rumor. On to Mortal Kombat 3. Mortal Kombat 3, at least at first, was strangely ninja-less. No Scorpion, no Reptile, no Kitana, no Melina, just Sub-Zero, and he wore a different costume with no mask. It looks like they were trying to really branch off into a different direction visually. There were no female ninjas present, and only one male ninja. They did, however, introduce the ninja Cyborgs, and there were two of them, Sector and Cyrax. Sector's the red one, and Cyrax is the yellow one. Occasionally, the symbol in the middle of the select screen would slide away temporarily, showing a third purple cyborg, and it turned out you had to enter a secret code to select him. This is Smoke, who is now a cyborg. This was due to something called the Cyber Initiative, where Lin Kuei decided to forcibly turn all their warriors into machines. He's here to help out Sub-Zero, as he's regained his humanity and wants to prevent the Lin Kuei from turning Sub-Zero into a cyborg. The only other secret character was Noob Saibot, who you can play as with a code. What's interesting is that, because there was no regular costume ninjas in the game, Noob was a palette swap of Kano rather than someone else like Sub-Zero. There was, however, several updates to the game. First, there was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. This one restores Scorpion, Kitana, and Reptile, and lets you play as Smoke without a code. Jade was added as a playable character for the first time in this game as well. There were several characters that you could unlock if you put codes in as well. You can play as Human Smoke for the first time, letting you play as Smoke more like he did in Mortal Kombat 2, and you could play as Melina. Weirdly enough, though, there was a classic Sub-Zero that you could unlock. I have no idea who this is supposed to be. I guess it's supposed to be Bihan, but he's supposed to be dead. And he even appears as the ghost Noob Saibot in that game. So yeah, weird. I guess it could be like Human Smoke. This is Noob in his human form. Also, Ermac finally was made real. The elusive red ninja returned. He was not given a lot of backstory, only saying that he was elusive and that he entered the tournament to prove that he existed, and he would return for Mortal Kombat 4, although he did not. Later on, it was revealed that Ermac is a body that houses the souls of many dead warriors, including that of King Gerard, Kitana's real father. Go figure. Noob Saibot this time around was only available as a boss to fight, and only in the home versions, and he looked different than he was now, because he was not a Kano sprite, but a ninja sprite. There was one more, Rain, the purple ninja. Rain appeared in the intro of the arcade game, but was not actually in the game, leading people to go crazy trying to unlock a purple ninja that didn't actually exist. He was, however, in the home versions. Rain is really a joke character. He's a prince from Edenia, and he's purple. Yeah, Purple Rain and Prince. Put two and two together. The next version of the game was Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which came out for PC, PlayStation, Saturn, and Nintendo 64. It had pretty much every Mortal Kombat character to date playable, pretty much right from the start, without adding anything new to the character select screen. However, there were two new secret characters. The first was Chameleon, spelled with a C. Chameleon with a C is a male ninja whose colors change rapidly and can use the moves of classic Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Noob Saibot, Human Smoke, Rain, Reptile, and Ermac. The Nintendo 64 version of the game was slightly different. It's missing some characters, particularly alternate versions of characters, and does not have Chameleon with a C, but it exclusively has another secret character, Chameleon, spelled with a K. What's interesting is that while she behaves like Chameleon with a C, meaning that she uses the movesets of Katana, Melina, and Jade, all of the female ninjas, they actually gave her a backstory. She's a female of the same race as Reptile, and unlike the other characters, does not switch colors, but instead always wears gray. The last version was Ultimate Mortal Kombat, which was on the DS, but I won't bother getting into that. It doesn't have any new characters. Mortal Kombat 4 toned things down considerably, only having 15 playable characters. For the ninjas this time around, they took it back to the basics in a lot of ways. For the male characters, you have Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Reptile, though Reptile noticeably is way more reptilian than he was previously, but still humanoid. Noob Saibot was present as a secret character. The one new male ninja was Reiko, and yeah, this guy himself is rather confusing. He wears red, leading a lot of people to believe that he was Ermac, but he's definitely not Ermac, and possesses a different moveset. At first I thought Reiko was wearing some sort of weird domino mask, kind of like the mask that the DC Comics character Nightwing wears, but it was later revealed that those are actually tattoos on his face. The confusing thing about Reiko is his identity. In the arcade and Nintendo 64 versions of the game, his ending merely shows a portal opening in front of him, which he walks through, and nothing. That's it. It was supposed to be a joke, but it really wasn't funny. In the PlayStation version, it showed him coming out of the portal in Outworld, where Shao Kahn's helmet was lowered onto his head, leading people to believe that Reiko was Shao Kahn in disguise, and the Game Boy Color version seemed to corroborate this. The endings are text in that version, and it merely says that Reiko returns to the realm that he rules. However, it turned out later that Reiko is not Shao Kahn, but is one of his generals who likes sitting on his throne and wearing his helmet while he's away, like a 7-year-old boy making a fake mustache and putting on his dad's pants. What a knob. For female ninjas, there's none returning, only a new character named Tanya. You might question me putting Tanya here, but man, look at her costume. Later on in the series, you'll also notice her costume changing to match the styles of the other female ninjas as well. Anyway, Tanya is an Edenian trader, and pretty much the least reliable character in the entire series, as she pretty much can't go 10 minutes without betraying anyone. What's weird is that in the Nintendo 64 version you could play as Katana if you used a Game Shark, and in the PC version you can hack her into the game. The Cyborgs are notably absent. The game got updated as Mortal Kombat Gold, which only appeared on the Dreamcast. This one added a few new characters, and for ninjas you had Katana, Melina, and Cyrax, and you could play as Sector if you used a code. Deadly Alliance definitely changed things up, as the character design started to get more and more diverse, and the series just started to get really good in general. Cyrax, Katana, Reptile, Scorpion, and Sub-Zero are all in this one. Because the design started to differentiate a lot, it can be tough to really put a finger on new characters that fall into the ninja archetype, but I think we could safely say that Frost definitely does, as she's a Lin Kuei member and apprentice of Sub-Zero, wearing an outfit similar to his classic one. I would also qualify Li Mei as falling into the female ninja archetype due to her outfit, though she annoyingly wears purple just like Melina. At this point, there was no chance of confusing them, especially since Melina wasn't even in this game. Deception's returning ninja characters include Ermac, Jade, Li Mei, Melina, Noob Saibot, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Tanya. The only new character that I'd lump with the ninjas would be Havoc, who always kind of reminded me of Reiko. I only mention him because his alternate costume looks very much like the old ninja designs. Armageddon was advertised as having every character, and they weren't fucking kidding. There's 62 characters in the PlayStation 2 and Xbox versions, and the Wii version has 63, adding Chameleon with a K. It's interesting because her only previous appearance was on a Nintendo 64 exclusive, so Chameleon with a K is the only character to have only ever appeared on Nintendo consoles, at least until a cameo in the intro of the new game, though she's still only playable as a Nintendo character. So that being said, the game has both her and the other Chameleon as well, and Cyrax, Ermac, Frost, Havoc, Jade, Katana, Li Mei, Melina, Noob Saibot, Rain, Reiko, Reptile, Scorpion, Sector, Smoke, Sub-Zero, and Tanya. Pretty much everybody. There were some new people, but they weren't ninjas. Well, except for Serena. Yeah, I should mention her. Her outfit sort of harkens back to the Katana and Melina designs, and she's an assassin, so why not? Serena was originally in Mortal Kombat Mythology's Sub-Zero as a boss, and then appeared in Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, which was a Game Boy Advance game based off of Deadly Alliance. Basically, the Game Boy Advance version of Deadly Alliance had only half the cast in it, so they released another game with the other half of the cast on the same engine. She had a cameo in Deception, but was not playable in a mainstream game until Armageddon. Weird, huh? Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe only had 11 characters for Mortal Kombat, as it split the roster with DC characters, and they stuck to older characters from the first 2 games only. Actually, none of the playable characters from the game were from Mortal Kombat 3 or onwards, though Quan Chi, who first appeared in Mortal Kombat 4, had a cameo. I guess they stuck to the oldest characters, as they're the most iconic and recognizable. For ninjas, you only have Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Katana, though I should mention that some of the DC characters play like other Mortal Kombat characters. In particular, I noticed that Batman handles a little bit like Tanya, and Green Lantern handles a little bit like Ermac. Finally, there's the new game, which is just called Mortal Kombat. As this is a retelling of the stories of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3, it contains mostly characters from those games, with only Quan Chi being from Mortal Kombat 4, and Shinnok also had a cameo, as well as several of the dead characters from the end of the Armageddon appearing in the intro. What's interesting is that the game itself clears up a lot of confusion. For example, in the story mode, it shows Scorpion killing the original Sub-Zero, Bihan, and then it introduces the more familiar younger Sub-Zero. It clearly states that it's his brother, and Smoke even calls him Tundra at first, only to be corrected. His name is Sub-Zero now. Also, when Noob Saibot shows up, it's clearly explained that he is Bihan when he fights Sub-Zero. Other than Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Smoke, and Noob, whom I mentioned, there's Reptile, Katana, Melina, Jade, and Ermac. Cyrax and Sector are here, and you get to see them as humans first, before they turn into cyborgs, and you can unlock their human forms as alternate costumes. Smoke never becomes a cyborg due to changes in the story, but Sub-Zero does, creating the new character Cyber Sub-Zero. Rain was added later on by popular demand as a DLC character. And well, remember Scarlet, the rumored red female ninja from Mortal Kombat 2 that didn't exist? Well, now she does, as another DLC character. The only other character to talk about is Tremor, the brown ninja. Yeah, brown like shit. And how appropriate, as he only ever appeared in Mortal Kombat Special Forces, when advances in human technology allowed Midway to miraculously form actual human feces into a disc shape that could be played in a PlayStation. There's really nothing interesting about Tremor. He's brown, he has earth powers, he's called Tremor, and he works for Kano. Yawn. But the thing is, there's a lot of fans who are really into this guy. Way more than could have reasonably played Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and way more than could possibly have enjoyed it. Part of this is that even before Special Forces, he was planned to be in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, but he was replaced by Rain. What's weird, though, is that if you look in the manual for Trilogy, you can see a picture of Tremor still there, although he looks a bit more orange than brown. I guess he didn't turn brown until he was in the shitty Special Forces. But the bio says Ermac, leading a lot of people to believe that it was Ermac, just some asshole colored him wrong. What's also interesting is that if you read Rain's bio, it clashes with the later established storyline, and actually sounds a bit more like Tremor than Rain. A lot of people want Tremor to be a DLC character in Mortal Kombat, But Ed Boon summed it up best. He said, no, there's other characters he'd much rather have. By the way, I wasn't kidding about this asshole having fans. Right now, I'm looking at a Mortal Kombat site that has a poll asking who your favorite male Mortal Kombat ninja is, with the choices being Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Rain, Reptile, Noob Saibot, Smoke, Chameleon with a C, and Tremor. I don't know what's more horrifying, the fact that Tremor has 80 votes, more so than Chameleon, or the fact that they even included Chameleon and Tremor and left Ermac out. Dicks. Well, that's pretty much all there is about the Mortal Kombat ninjas, at least until they add a fusion ninja who shoots rainbows out of his armpits, and his fatality is that he forces you to play Mortal Kombat Special Forces until your head expands slightly with a rubber stretching sound and then explodes with a loud bang. Join me next week and I'll talk about Mega Man. Fuck yeah.